So let's talk about watches. Let's talk about my favorite luxury and why I'm into it and why I think more entrepreneurs should get into it and why it's actually been an incredible decision for me to get into watches. And at first, to be honest, it was mostly just a self-indulgence thing. It was a, you know what, I've earned it. I'm gonna spend $10,000 or $20,000 on a luxury that, to be honest, just made me feel good. It made me feel like I kind of owned the part of the person that I wanted to become. And to be honest, like, that might be the biggest ROI you get on buying watches. But that said, I want to talk about the tangible and intangible sort of investment vehicle of purchasing luxuries like watches, particularly for the entrepreneur, and why I think it's been such a good decision for my journey. And you know, my latest purchase is actually this watch right here. It is a all gold Rolex Day-Date. It is brand new, assigned to me from my dealer. I picked it up for $37,500, and it is worth anywhere from $50 to $55 right now on the gray market, on the aftermarket. And this is a total, like, this right here is a grail piece for a lot of people. You know, once they get this, they're done with collecting. For me, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep buying more pieces because a few reasons. I'm going to explain those reasons in this video today, and hopefully it's a valuable video. Hopefully you get something from it, and it doesn't just feel like, you know, a long, drawn-out flex, because I hope you can trust my intentions here that this is not what this is about. Of course, it does me good for you to see, like, my whole portfolio and for you to see that, oh, I'm spending this money on these watches because I'm a business coach, and it's important that you know that your business coach is doing well, right? So there's definitely an element of incentive to making this video in that direction. As well as that, though, it has legitimately helped me shift my self-image and shift my identity into that of somebody who does the sort of revenue, who runs the sort of a business that I desire to run. And I think that element has been just as valuable as, you know, the investment element. So let's get into the video today. I think it's going to be really fun to talk about, you know, all the watches that I've bought, my opinion on all the watches that I've bought, why I bought them, and kind of explain away some of the intentions and why I've done it, and sort of give credit to where credit is due to my dealer, to some of the people who have given me some advice on how to get into the market, and some of my intentions moving forward with watch buying. So let's get started. So I figured this would actually be a good place to start in showing you all of the watches that I've purchased so far. And you can see here on the top left, you know, I've profited, you know, $37,000 by being into this. So this is a hobby that has been extremely profitable for me. And it's one that I'll explain kind of how you can profit from watches soon. It's very similar to, like, you know, alternative investments like wine or art or you know, vintage automobiles or things like that, where you can really enjoy the investment while also profiting from it. And as well as profiting $37,000, you know, I've kind of, you know, gone through some tax strategy to where I've been able to write these off for various different reasons, and I'll talk about that later. And of course, you need to seek your own tax advising, seek your own accountant, your own bookkeeper, whatever. Get your own advice. The advice that I've been given is that I can write these off. Now, of course, so long as, you know, the IRS is cool with my means of doing so, then I would continue to write them off. But it's kind of their opinion, and hey ho, if I owe some money in taxes from all the watches that I've bought, then I will obviously pay that money, and, like, I won't complain because, like, if I owe it, I owe it, right? So okay, let's start from the top. The very first one that I have listed right here is a Cartier Santos. This is actually for my mom. And so I bought this for her just almost as a gift because I remember when I was a wedding photographer and I was just getting started kind of in entrepreneurship, like, I literally didn't have my license, so I couldn't drive to my shoots. And so I could just call Ubers, but my mom wanted to be a part of the process. And so she would drive me to my original, like, shoots. Even, like, when I did, like, family shoots and senior photos and things like this, you know, when I was just getting started as, like, a 16, 15-year-old kid, just trying to, you know, be on my hustle, my mom would drive me to these shoots. And you can actually see a video recently on my channel with my mom where we talked about homeschooling, self-education, and kind of why I believe that being self-educated and having never properly finished high school and just being encouraged to go all in on self-studies and self-education has really served me. And I was very lucky. If I have a form of privilege, it's that I grew up in a household where self-education was really encouraged, and I want to pass that same virtue down to my kids in the future. So this is the first watch that I bought. It's from my mom. So this is, you know, this is a loss. So you can really consider my $143,000 portfolio to be more like $130 because, you know, this isn't my watch and I couldn't sell it. So I just have it on here just to share it for the video, to be honest. But you can see it's done sort of well for her. She's made $1,000 on it, which is pretty cool. And she wears it almost every day. We've joked about getting it engraved and the back of it saying, "Thanks for letting me drop out. Love, Trey," which I think would be kind of funny. The next one is a Rolex Daytona. This is actually my very first Rolex that I properly bought from like an AD where I didn't buy it online. I didn't buy it somewhere like overseas or something. I think my very first was overseas with one of my clients, Bastian Slot. So he had worked with me about 2.5, 3 years ago, and I went and visited him for New Year's because he'd just taken off, and he became like an incredible success story for my coaching business, where, you know, he's gone on today to do like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a month. And we were the very first person he invested into, which is incredible to me. And so that was the first watch I ever picked up. But that's actually not the Daytona. That's a bit of a tangent. This Daytona, I literally just called around, and I got super lucky at that a Rolex dealer here locally had it available. And it was actually another client that had ordered it, and then COVID kicked in and they couldn't travel to come pick it up. But myself being like a stark libertarian and just like not giving a rip about any of the COVID stuff going on, I was like, I can come buy it. Like, I'll come into the store. I don't care about the lockdown stuff. I'll come get it. And so I went and got it, and I picked it up for $17,000, and it's worth $30,000 today, which is, it's been a really, really nice investment, and I'm really happy with that. The next watch, and this is the watch I'm wearing right now. So I picked this up literally yesterday. So that kind of inspired making this video, because I'm realizing that this is becoming more than just a hobby. It's like becoming a proper vehicle for me. And so I figured I'd make a video on it. And later in the video, I want to talk about like when you should get into it. I do not think that somebody with less than 50,000 liquid should touch this stuff, especially if you're a business owner, because that money should go back into your business. If I'm honest, you know, I made that video on like financial freedom, and I talked about like, I think I might have hedged my bets a little too soon in my life. And made some investments like too quickly versus just dumping all of my capital back into advertising, back into, you know, paying my team really well, back into all these things that would push my business forward. But I've still got plenty of cash left in the business bank account, and we're completely fine. It's just that, you know, I look at some of these things like these watches, and I look at like $143,000. Like, as much as I love the watches, I also know that I could turn that 143 into 200, 300 if I were to spend it on ads in a month, right? And so there's some sort of opportunity costs that you have to think about as a business owner. And right now, the reason I don't spend $143,000 in a month is because we honestly just don't have the team size. Our product isn't where I want it to be yet. There's a few reasons why I'm spending on watches versus the business, which I'm open to questions about that. So this is the Rolex Day-Date 40. Again, this is the watch that I'm wearing right now. It's definitely one of my favorites. I've always wanted an all gold watch. It's really heavy. It feels incredible. It's just like one of these watches that, you know, I'll be passing down to like my son or my son-in-law one day, or giving as a gift to somebody incredibly important in my 50s or 60s or 70s. I'm not going to wear it that much, to be honest, because due to the nature of being all gold, it's probably something I'll wear when I work and then take off for other things in my life. Like I'll wear maybe another one of my watches for day to day, but this is really helping me kind of solidify almost an identity. And this is an element that I want to talk about in this video is, you know, creating an environment that supports the person that you want to become. Because you think about where I came from, like, even though I had entrepreneurial family and my parents did pretty well, we were like upper middle, maybe middle class. I don't really know what you would say. Maybe I would say upper middle class. Still, like, I don't think my parents would have considered buying a $50,000 watch. Like, I think that's a bit, I don't know if that's quite like their play. So it's just like, I have to learn how to lean into a different concept of myself, and that's a whole other topic which we'll get into towards later in this video. Let me turn back on the screen recording here and keep going down. So I picked this up. It's actually a pretty straightforward story. Like, I literally went into my dealer. You know, I work with a guy named Brian who works for a company here locally, which I'm not going to mention because they're going to get a ton of calls from a ton of people wanting watches from them, and I know that they have a select private set of clients, and they'd rather not me send them a ton of business for no reason. I made, you know, an accident one time, and I mentioned them, and like, they got a lot of inquiries, and to be honest, like, that's not how it works. You need to develop a relationship and really become trustworthy through a dealer and show them that you legitimately appreciate the watches, that the watches mean something to you, and then that way Rolex themselves will assign a name to a watch when they make it and make sure that it ends up on the right wrist. So this watch that I'm wearing right now, you know, it kind of came through their inventory, and it sort of had my name on it. It's an interesting story, but yeah, the Day-Date 40 for me is just like a, you know, it's like all bets hedged. Like, you know, as all in as I already was on, you know, building my wealth through the business that I run currently, there was something that was kind of holding me back in the back of my head. There was something that was just like, do I really need to do this? Is this really me? Like, why work so hard almost? I've made enough money, like I'm coasting, I'm chilling. Like me and my fiance, like literally right after I'm done making some content today, I'm just gonna go eat fettuccine with her, and like she's gonna edit some photos, and I'm gonna, I don't know what, maybe like do a little bit of admin work or something. And my life is very comfortable right now. And so I needed something that to me kind of represented the level of thinking that a 8-figure business owner would sit in. And so, if you watched one of my videos recently, I talked about getting my business to $10 million a year. And that starts with, a couple different things, like incredible products, leading a better team, etc. And to me, a watch like this, a $10,000 watch might do it, 20 might do it, but a $50,000 watch, like, you're stupid to wear a $50,000 watch unless you're doing $10 million a year, almost, right? And that's what the Daytona meant to me too. Like when I bought the Daytona, I was doing $30,000 or $40,000 a month, and I just felt like this watch kind of meant $1 million a year. You know what I mean? And these have all been like little trophies and little additions to my collection that have, over time stacked into creating a bit of a character for me. Now, I don't believe you should rely solely on objects. Like, it should be a head game, right? You should be able to, even with the worst possible environment, I'm working out of just a dinky office in the random of a half decent rent apartment. Like, this isn't luxury by any means, and I don't think you need to rely on those things, but it certainly does help. I don't think you should build a reliance on anything for you to do the work that you need to do. But if you have the option to build an environment that supports the identity that you have and who you want to become, I think you should do that, because it really has helped me grow my businesses much faster and just kind of become the person that I want to become, And I just don't think somebody who wears a watch like this would, do anything other than build an incredible company. So on to the next watch. This is a Rolex Day-Date 36. So it's pretty much the same exact watch you can see above, but I actually picked it up in Los Angeles literally 2 weeks ago because I was waiting on the 40, which I'm wearing now. And my dealer had kind of told me, like, hey, it's coming. Like, we just don't know when. Like, guaranteed we're going to get you one. But, like, no, like, almost like it's going to get to you. We just don't know when. Like, hopefully it's by the time you get married, because we'd love to see you wear it on your wedding day, which I'm now going to be wearing this on my wedding day, which I think is going to be very special. And it's cool because my watch dealer is actually a jeweler as well. So I got the engagement ring that I have for my fiance from the same dealer, which is very special to me. And so I picked up the 36 millimeter, which is, for those of you who don't know watches, it's basically just a smaller watch. So it's almost the exact same thing, just smaller. And instead of it being a brand new, like a 2022 or 2023, however you would put that, it's actually a 1986. So it's sort of a vintage watch. And arguably, like, my fiance actually likes the 36 millimeter just as much, if not more, because it's got that vintage thing. But for me, again, it's about the identity. Like, I'm not going to settle for a vintage piece. I'm going to only go for a piece that was assigned to me, that has my name on it, that was literally made for me, assigned to me at birth, And so I might be selling this 36 at some point, if not pretty soon, if not even just trading it back into my dealer. They should be giving me a quote on what it's worth pretty soon. They're actually holding it right now, doing some due diligence, servicing the watch, and they're going to let me know what they're willing to give me it for, because I just wanted an all gold watch. Because again, there's something about an all gold thing to me that represents a level of status and a level of thinking that I just admire and that I want to lean into as, a 22-year-old entrepreneur. Like, I want to be thinking on a certain level, and I need things in my environment that remind me sort of who I am and what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to build. Just like you have a vision board, just like you have, goals. Like, I have a whiteboard right behind this camera with all the goals over the next, 2 or 3 years that I have. I think a watch is almost like an identity thing for me. And so that to me was why I did that watch. Now, scrolling a little bit further down, let me turn back on the recording here. You can see, all right, it just started, Cartier Santos. So this is the next watch that I purchased. This was actually just like a literal spur of the moment purchase. I just saw this on Reels. Like, it was one of those times when I was just like scrolling around and I saw somebody who had this watch and it just looked super cool. And it was also a miniature version of, my mom's watch. I was like, that's kind of cool. I could like match with my mom. It was like $4,500 at the time. No, it's $4,300. You can see right there. And I think it's raised to actually like $5,000 or $6,000 now, which is cool. And that's just the market that we're in right now. These prices probably won't sustain, to be honest, but that's not really the point of me getting into watches anyway. And so, yeah, I have that now. And I think that that's probably the most unintentional purchase so far. Like, I didn't really think that purchase through, to be honest. I saw it and I loved it. And it was like a little gift to myself. We were having a great week in the business. So I figured like, why not? You know what I mean? Next is a Rolex Submariner, and this one has done very well. So I picked this up for, I think, $9,200 probably 2 years ago, and this was around my birthday. So this is the first watch that my dealer had assigned to me. So I picked up the Daytona right here from the dealer, and that was just by chance. It was luck. But then this Submariner, they literally assigned it to me. So they saw that I was a serious buyer, and they said, you know what, Trey, like, we want this on your hands. We want this on your wrist. And so I said, all right, like, I will take it 100%. The money's ready. The second you have it for me, I'll pay and I'll pick it up because I love this watch. This is just a classic Rolex. Everybody who knows Rolex knows the Submariner. If you know watches, you know the Submariner. It's a very classic design. It looks great. It feels great. It wears very well. I've got smaller wrists, so I'm a smaller guy. I did the 41 millimeter size on the Submariner is a little big for me, but it still looks great, and I still rock it because honestly, like, you know, I don't mind. Like, it's a Submariner. Like, what are you gonna hate on me for it being too big on my wrist? Like, it's one of my favorite watches, so I'm gonna wear it. And then the last one is one that I picked up online. Again, this was like, it was like 2018. And it was on Chrono 24, which is the app that I'm using right now. And I was just like, I had like 10 grand in the bank, and I spent 2 grand on this watch. There's a little fly in my room. This is what happens when you get a dog. So I spent like 2 grand on it, and again, it was very similar to the Santos here, where I was just like, I just want to buy I want to buy a Rolex. So I just bought a really cheap one, and you can see, like, it's not the best looking watch. Like, I literally just bought it, and it's probably sat in my case since. So I've worn it probably 3 times ever. And I just think that this would make like a good gift to somebody at some point or something. I wore it a little bit, and then I was just like, this doesn't feel legit. Like, I put it in the box because I felt like I kind of skimped out. I realized that, like, I shouldn't buy a watch at this point. I'm not going to sell it because I committed to the decision, but I'm going to go make a lot more money so that I can afford a nicer watch, something that actually feels the part, because I put this watch on and it just kind of felt fake. Like, it's a real Rolex. I got that confirmed. The band is aftermarket, but it didn't feel like $1 million a year person's watch, right? So I waited another 2 years before I bought anything, but it's still in my collection, and you can see I've made a 70% return on it, which is pretty cool. So that's my collection, and I figured that would be worth showing and sharing before I got into, you know, why I even do this and some of my thinking behind it, and sort of how to do it responsibly and in a way that actually, you know, benefits you. So I see my watches as a few things. They're an asset for a few reasons. First of all, they're almost like a separate bank account. They're like a savings account that, you know, right now the retail price on watches versus the aftermarket price the disparity is incredible because investors are looking for alternate routes. Inflation is, you know, skyrocketing. There's a lot of economic forces that are causing jewelry, in particular watches, and other things too, like wine and art, and like I said, you know, vintage, like automobiles to rise in price. But watches are something that I get to enjoy every day. You know, I'm not going to drive a car every day because, you know, I don't have a lot of driving to do. I'm not, you know, that huge on wine. I wouldn't crack open a bottle of wine because then it ruins the value of it, right? And then same with art, like, where would I hang it? And then I have to take care of it. It's just a lot more to take care of. So watches is something I get to enjoy, and it's almost like a separate bank account. And at any time, you know, I've arranged a deal with my bank that I go through that they will loan me, you know, anywhere from 70 to 80% of my portfolio value at max if I ever need the cash. So, you know, so long as I can prove by the insurance that I use to insure the watches that my portfolio is actually worth that much, they will trust the insurance company's word and they'll loan me that amount at a pretty reasonable annual rate. And so if I ever need some extra cash, I can do that. Plus, I could obviously just sell them, even though I would hate to ever do that, because to me, every single one has so much value, and I don't really think I ever plan on selling for really any reason, because, you know, why would I? Like, why would I sell, you know, this watch instead of just, you know, going hard for a minute in my business and making the money just the real way, right? And so that's kind of how I see it. It's almost like, you know, when I had $20,000 in the bank and I spent like 10 or 17 or 15 on a watch, it was almost like a hard reset. And I know that sounds extreme, but it pushed me to make more and more and more money, right? And that's what I think it's been for me up until the point where the business just skyrocketed and I started seeing, like, it's not just about cornering myself. So I stopped cornering myself and things went a lot further, but for a while I had to corner myself and really put objects in my environment, like the right apartment, sorry, this fly is crazy, the right car, whatever, the right watch, that really forced me to keep growing and keep pushing and get comfortable in that position, almost feeling broke again, even though I have the money if I so needed it. And I bought a lot of watches aftermarket that I've sold. I've bought and sold a lot of watches at this point, probably over like 20 watches. But anything that my dealer gives me, like, I keep it forever, because to be honest, like, those watches just mean more, that they were made with my name on them. And you even get like, it's funny, like, you get these little perks over time. Like, not that a pin is worth anything, but Rolex like sent me a pin, and they just, it's cool when you start to become like a recognized client, and that way it's literally like, Rolex is just giving you free money, if you would see it like that. But at the same time, like, that's only if you sell. So that's why I have the agreement with my bank that I will never sell, because it's not, it's not what I want to do. So I'd rather just take a loan against the value, the portfolio value of the watches. And really, it's a loan against the insurance policy, technically. And that's something I can get into another time. But yeah, it's just a little pin, just in recognition like of my loyalty to the brand. And there's obviously other brands like Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, and some other brands like that. But like, when you're in the Midwest, there's not a lot of options besides Patek and Rolex. And Patek, like an entry-level Patek, is almost $40,000. And so right now, like, I'd love to get into Patek, but to be honest, like, again, I could do it. I could go and buy, a couple different Pateks and like start to build that portfolio. But right now, the money is needed in my business. And, I've gone through seasons of like selling everything and just putting it all back on the table in the business and then growing that money again. And now I'm kind of at a season where like I'm coasting, I'm chilling, my team is killing it. Our clients love our products. The money's consistent. My business bank account is consistently growing. My personal bills are completely met. I have no debt other than car debt, which in my opinion isn't really debt. And so, yeah, it's just like I'm in a season now of just reinvesting all the profits back into the business and pushing it as far as it can go. So that's the first reason, is obviously it's a reasonable investment if you know what pieces to go with and you understand the market and you understand, the dynamic of a relationship with your dealer. Again, for me, it's like that $37,000 that I've profited from buying and selling watches, which again, like, you would have to sell it to profit the money to turn it back into dollars, right? So the 37 that I've profited, really because like my insurance policy recognizes that 37, isn't even really comparable to the return I've gotten just by the reward of buying them and by allowing my identity to sort of like shape around the sort of a person that would do something like this. So, like when I was in Los Angeles, I saw the 36mm Day-Date in the window and I was like, yeah, I want it. Like, I want that watch. I would love to have it. So I just went ahead and paid. Of course, I had to call the bank and like do a whole thing, but I paid and I walked out with it. And it was within like 30 minutes that I made the decision. And being able to do that helps me almost feel abundant with my resources and realize that money flows in, it flows out, and it's just a number, and it's something that I can utilize as a tool versus something that I have to feel scarce about. And when you're a business owner and you're trying to deploy capital in multiple different directions and you're trying new projects, it's really easy for you to start to feel scarce, like as if money like is only going to come for a certain amount of time. And like, as a business owner, you can probably relate that there'll be times of extreme highs in your business where it just feels like everything's clicking. Just every single day you're having a record day and things are moving forward. And then you have seasons where it's extremely destitute and you wonder what changed. And the reality is nothing's changed. That's just the flow of being a business owner, and you have to stay consistent. You have to keep that abundant mentality in your head. And to me, luxuries like watches allow me to have that sense of security in my finances almost. Like, if I can afford a $50,000 watch and it's not that big of a deal, of course I paid less than 50 for it, I paid 37 for it, but I digress, right? Then do I really have any financial troubles? Like, really, I don't. So where's my worry coming from? And I just don't believe that when we're in a worried state, when we're in a scarce state, that we make good decisions. I believe we make our best decisions from an abundant state of mind, from a state of mind that actually views the world as fundamentally abundant in time, abundant in resources, abundant in love, abundant in gifts to give and gifts to receive. It's actually, why my first tattoo that I've ever gotten has the word abundance in it in Hebrew. So, I can explain that in another video, but I believe that we need to think abundantly and fundamentally see the world as almost a playground that we can create anything in. And some people would call it like unplugging from the matrix, right? And realizing that the world has been made up by people that aren't a whole lot smarter than you, and you can kind of do whatever you want. And for me, having a piece of jewelry like this and having something, a reminder of that fundamental principle, it kind of just like forces me to be worthy of it. Because like if I'm wearing it and I don't feel worthy of it, it sickens me. It's like, I don't want this on me. I don't want to wear it because it feels like separate from me. But when I wear it and I feel like, yeah, that's just me. Like, it's a $50,000 watch, soon I'll have a $100,000 or $200,000 watch. Like, that's just going to be how I'm going to roll. And I'm going to feel more and more worthy of those things because I'm going to see money in such a way, and I'm going to deploy it in such a way and have that mentality where, it doesn't feel separate from me. Like when I first bought that $2,000 watch that I told you back in 2018, I wore it and I didn't feel worthy of it. It felt weird. Something felt off. I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I wearing this watch? And what I realized was that was in my head, I'd built an association between what that watch meant, and I felt separate from it. I felt unworthy to wear something like that. And I'm a believer that we have an internal regulator inside of our heart and our souls, and that we're spiritual beings. This regulator basically guides our life, and it's almost like a thermostat. If it's set to 70, if you go too hot, you start to succeed too much, you'll cool back off to 70. If you go too low and your bank account goes too low, your relationships go too low, you'll heat back up to 70. And that regulator, that 70 number, is just your concept of yourself. Who you believe you are and your self-image is the regulator. It's the hidden regulator of your life. And these are the things that, we teach our clients in our programs. And this is why, we've helped, at this point, like 10 people build $1 million a year business off of our programs. One of the secrets is really kind of rewiring how you think about yourself, because 17-year-old Trey, 16-year-old Trey would not ever think that this was a good idea. He'd be like, what the heck are you doing, man? Why would you do that? It's such a splurge. It makes no sense. Why would you spend that much on a watch? All kinds of thoughts would come into that kid's head, but that's not me. I've changed. I believe we can fundamentally rewire our personalities and who we are, and start to think about certain variables of our life very differently, start to think about money differently, start to think about our relationships differently, start to think about God differently, and we can change these things. And so it's almost like a physical reminder of the upgrade and the continuous need to upgrade my thinking. Otherwise, I will stagnate and I'll stay right where I am pretty much forever. So this, like I said, there's two reasons. Like the financial aspect of like it's a good investment. I think watches are a good store of value. I think right now, if you were to buy aftermarket, it's a little silly. The watch prices are crazy. Then again, it's kind of like a do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing, because I bought the 36 millimeter Day-Date in LA for $22,000, and it's arguably not worth that at all. I think it's going to go back down to 17, 18. I think a lot of the watch market is going to fall back down, because a lot of the market sentiment in the watch industry, and it's very similar with a lot of alternative investment vehicles right now, is the prices can't go down. And it's like what Warren Buffett says, like when people are greedy, be frugal. When people are frugal, be greedy. Or I don't know if frugal is the word, but scared. I think when people are greedy, be scared. When people are scared, be greedy. And so I think I was lucky that in 2019 I had just initiated a relationship with a dealer that now trusts me enough to, I was talking to my rep, and he's just such an incredible dude, and I've loved getting to sort of see his business grow as well. I've loved like I've recommended him some books, and like we've kind of shared some insights about like sales, and like I think he's coming up on doing like $2 million a year in total sales, and as a sales rep for the company that he works for, selling watches like this. And I'm one of his top clients at this point, which is really cool. And so we've learned a lot together, and it's almost like our businesses have grown at a very similar rate, which is really neat to me. And he was telling me in the car, like, dude, because he was giving me a drive back to my place, and he was like, dude, like, watches are just watches. It's just a thing. It's just a luxury, but it'll help you think about yourself in a certain way. It's just a cool, it's almost like whenever I see Brian, it's like I know I reached another level. And to me, that's why I do it, is it's just a reminder of the new levels that I'm hitting. And at this point, I just do it for me. I do it because I have a certain standard for my life that I want to live by, and I don't want to breach that standard. I do not want to be the kind of a guy who can't afford a $50,000 watch. I think that that's the kind of guy that I am, and it's the kind of guy I think of $100,000 to $200,000 watches. I'm that kind of a guy, and if anything, my standards are just raising to that point where those sorts of things are just, it's inevitable, right? And if you can almost internalize that concept of yourself, your growth will come very naturally. So I hope that this video has come with the sort of tone that I want it to have. I don't want it to, and I know I said a lot and it was very monotone and I was just speaking. I wasn't trying to entertain you. You're not a kid. Like, you can soak up, some nuggets of wisdom or some things you disagree with from this video. But this is why I do it. And this is why I think that if you agree with some of my sentiments, that you should do it as well. Like one of my clients, he's in our mastermind and he's growing his business. He's doing about $30,000 to $40,000 a month. He'd like to get to $1 million a year. And I'm just right now working directly with him once a week over Zoom. And I'm telling him what to do, how to position his offers, how to build his team, yada, yada. And he is just now picking up a $5,000 watch because that's the price of his offer. And that was something that I did early on, is I bought something that was worth $5,000 and I bought it off the internet and I sold it because I ended up not liking it. But I did that because that was the price of my offer at the time, and it just felt very, like, it made me feel abundant about when I was on a sales call. It was like, I don't need you to buy this thing because I literally have it right here on my wrist. So if you take it or leave it, it's fine. And having that perspective about your business of like, look, it's your decision and it doesn't affect me if you do or you don't, almost puts you in a place of power where you will then attract the business that you want versus being forced to work for it and almost chasing the business that you want. So anyway, I could ramble on, but I was about to wrap up the video by saying something like, I hope this video has had the tone that I was hoping it would have, just a very matter-of-fact tone. No doubt people seeing my portfolio of watches is going to like raise my authority for some people. 100%. I think that's really cool. Other people are going to see that as me just blindly like flexing something, and that's fine too. You can have your own opinion, but at the end of the day, I know why I do it, and I think you need to know why you do it, and you shouldn't do it just because other people are doing it. You should do it for your own reason. You should know why it's something you're interested in, and if it's something that you can look in the mirror and be proud of, I think it's something worth attempting to do. That said, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you've appreciated some of the sentiment that the video comes with and the perspective that I share regarding it, and best of luck growing your business to a point where you can do things like this that really reinforce the identity that you're trying to lean into. God bless.